I think the only thing that I understood is that I'm not going to be presenting in French. So I was going to say...
She said that you will be presenting in
No, no! I understand enough. Yeah. So I was going to thank everybody for coming into my suite. This is where I usually stay whenever I'm in Montreal. I wish. Maybe next time. So I wanted to talk real quick a little bit about what we do. Something that is very little known in general in the open source communities around the world, especially around Canada. We had a great opportunity over the last couple of years to work with many different communities in Canada and do some things that are not traditionally thought of Microsoft doing, which is may come as a surprise to some of you, and some of you might find it interesting and give us some good guidance, questions, suggestions. And so obligatory PowerPoint slides, hopefully not going to be too boring for you. So again, my name is Nick, and my official title is the Open Source Strategy Lead at Microsoft. Now, when I say official, this is my title that they allow me to have externally. Internally, we have all different sort of, product people, etc., etc. But really, what this is, when I look at it from the open source strategy perspective, if you were to say that Microsoft is this, kind of like the evil empire, which is, one way to look at it. And the open source is the Rebel Alliance, which is also an interesting way to look at it. Then I'm the guy that's helping the Rebel Alliance work on the next version of the X-Wing fighter. So to some of you, this might be confusing. This actually analogy is credit to Joey DeVilla, who is one of our evangelists from Microsoft, whose background is in open source community as is mine. And the reason why I have this analogy is because my job in Canada is to work with the different communities that have open source software development, with different organizations, in order to make open source work really well on Microsoft systems. So various systems, including Windows. So my sole job is to make sure that for our customers, for our partners, when they encounter questions or issues with open source, so PHP applications, for example, is kind of the low-hanging fruit for us right now. My job is to make sure that that works on the Windows platform really well, and go back to Redmond and tell them, listen guys, this is not working, you need to fix some things. Or we need to get more of a certain functionality or features, etc. So that's kind of my job. And that's kind of that's my role. I go out there and I deliver the message. And I deliver this message a lot internally within Microsoft, where we are still shifting the perceptions within the company and helping Microsoft understand the role, the opportunity that open source presents to the company. And a lot of people understand that. But again, this is my job internally to do that. But also externally to work with partners and communities to communicate that and make sure that we present this kind of evolution of Microsoft from this kind of the perception of, when you program open source, you program in communism. A reminder from your friends at Microsoft, which is a gentle reminder of some of the things in the past that come back and haunt us sometimes as mistakes. Mistakes that we are evolving and trying to change when we kind of rebrand ourselves, not just from a marketing perspective, but also from a community engagement, involvement perspective. We don't just listen, but we also participate and kind of rebrand to this kind of a nicer, more gentle company, free hugs from the empire. But to be serious, my role, we're the guys that at Microsoft started working on a thing a while back called PHP on Windows. If you know anything about PHP, you know that about 10 years ago, there was no real practical way to run PHP in Windows because it would just not work very well. It was not a first-class citizen by no means. And we recognize that. And the reason why we recognize that is our customers were saying, hey, listen, I want to run a blog. And I'm using this PHP thing, and I want to use it on Windows, and it's not working. Help me make it easy. Help me make it easy to run, to install, to optimize. And that's what we did. We actually worked with PHP community and Zen specifically, a company behind PHP from a commercial perspective, to optimize it, to improve it. And things like fast CGI were one of the things that came out of it. And the other thing that most recently came out, which is very exciting for us, and again, this is not a product pitch by no means, but this is just an example. The web platform installer is kind of like our way to enable for customers to install applications, such as open source apps, such as WordPress and Drupal and Gallery, with one click on Windows, something that was not possible in the past. And this is, again, not because we are, we're going out there and, actively driving, Drupal or WordPress is the best software to do anything. No, it's because we realize in some scenarios, customers want the ease of use, the flexibility, being able to run and install something like this with one click. Thanks, Mark. and these are some of our first steps that we've been making over the last several years. But this is a very little known fact that we do this kind of work, that we work with open source, communities. And the way I like to characterize some of our work with sort of some of the organizations that we have here and things that already are today in web platform installer, and some applications that we're hoping soon will be, like TikiWiki, for example. It's really in three things. And we see them as contribution. And when you think about Microsoft and open source, you think, well, Microsoft just, talks. And I would beg to disagree, because we do not only, when you look at sort of all the open source projects out there, and there are about 150,000 active open source projects, about 80,000 or so can run on Windows, which is actually also kind of interesting. We recognize that fact, that a lot of these projects deploy and run on Windows. But out of those 80,000, about 30,000 are specifically developed to run on Windows. 30,000. And out of those 30,000, 700 are the projects that Microsoft actively works with and contributes code back to. These are the projects that we both can get involved with, and projects that we actually start out on our own. And some of the examples, some of the work that we've done with Apache, Cupid, it's some very, very interesting work that we've done with Hadoop and HBase, sort of the Java-based database with Open Pegasus. Just some of the kind of examples. Samba, you probably all know about, sort of being able to integrate systems easier. A lot of customers came to us saying, well, I want to be able to run my messaging easier and connect the systems between Windows, Linux, etc. So we've been working with Samba, contributing code actively back to their project. And even Linux. It's a little known fact, I think, among the people in the industry, but I would say about a month and a half, we contributed 20,000 lines of code to the Linux core, to the Linux kernel, to be included eventually included in the kernel, in order to make Linux run as a first-class citizen on top of some of the virtualized or the virtual implementation of Windows, and vice versa. So we collaborated with Red Hat and worked with Novell and other companies to make sure that that code exists for our customers to be able to leverage and make sure that those systems work very well together. So, in the industry that was touted as hell freezes over as Microsoft submits Linux code. I like that title because, I think this is a good representation of the work that we're doing, because it's not a very well-known fact that we have a lab at Microsoft. It's called Open Source Technology Center. And I've been there a couple times. It kind of grew eventually, but it basically is all servers running open source. And people that are working there, they are all Linux, Unix background, PHP background, and all they do is optimize and make sure that PHP and other applications work well on Windows, make sure that we have capabilities for systems to talk to each other very easily. And, for example, with this contribution, the lines of code are eventually going to be included into 2.6 version of the Linux kernel. And other things like Iron, Ruby, and working on sort of Silverlight Toolkit, and these are some of the open source contributions that we've been making through Coplex and other foundations. And so basically it is the contribution mostly, but then also collaboration, and things like I already mentioned PHP and Zen, and things that we do together. The Apache Foundation, we've done some great sponsorship of some of the projects, like you saw Cupid, for example, Stonehenge, other things, where we actually not only give code, but also sponsor the Apache Foundation. In fact, earlier this year, we contributed $100,000 to Apache Foundation for some of their open source projects. The reason why is because we see value in having that work being done, because in the end, it helps our customers. And also, working with Eclipse and making sure that developers have the same flexibility with their tools and being able to use use Java with .NET and